Oh no, I'm reading the numbers wrong. 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh no! Right, okay, we'll start now. Stop sharing that. Hello everybody, welcome back to day 3. Today we're going to be doing FFmpeg and hex editing. I'm going to turn my video camera off now because it, as you know, I'm running off a shonky connection, so it makes it work better if I turn it off. Right, so there we go. So welcome back everybody. So following on from yesterday, I mentioned a command line trick for hex editing files in a text file, sed, short for stream editor, which, if you remember from yesterday, looks something like this. Now, sed is actually part of the GNU core utils package, and I'll link to that when I finally put all of this up as a blog post. So I'll walk you through that and what it actually means. So what the command actually does is search sequentially from the beginning to the end, looking in the first instance for the value -i, and replaces that with the value -2. So that's the part which says s/-1/-2/-g. Then it redirects the output, which is the sideways hat sign, to a new file. So as copying the original file onto itself results in a blank file. Now, redirection is handy for all sorts of reasons, not least of which is that you can redirect the output to a different directory, which becomes very handy if you're working on a lot of files. Now, I'm not going to cover that today, but I will be covering that tomorrow. Now, the thing is, yesterday we were using this to work on the JSON file, which holds the movement values of a video file, and reapplying that to the video file using ffglitch. But this doesn't just work on text files. Now, you can use the same command to, say, mess up a video file. So let's go ahead and do that on one of the files we captured on Monday, which is called, in my file system, adbreak.webm. Now, notice the extension. This points to the file being Google's VP8 codec, which is in fact what Qi's webcam booth captures with, which is what I captured this with in the first place. So we'll go ahead and find that video. So just give me a second while I load that up. Now, so this is my desktop here, and we're going to navigate to the folder, and we'll find the file adbreak. Then we're going to open a terminal and type in the command we were using yesterday on a text file and run that. And then we'll try and open that up with VLC. Now you see VLC won't actually play that file because it's too broken, but if we use MPV, you get these lovely kind of striated kind of designs. And if you flick through it, you can actually see different kind of parallel things going on. Okay, so that's, yeah, just flick through that and see if there's anything worthwhile looking at in there. So to me, that didn't really work that well. So we've done this already. Just go back a slide here. Yes, that was that. So that didn't work very well. My slides are messed up, great. So that didn't work very well, so we could always go back to the same file and change some values. So if we change them to these values on the same file, we end up with a slightly different video. which will be this. So this is the same file, but with slightly different values. So as you can see, I run the command again with different values. Go back into it. Again, see, it actually looks readable there. We'll open that up with VLC and see if it plays, and this time it does. So it's the same file, slightly different values, but this time you get some better effects going on. WebM's really nice because it has this kind of blocky effect to it. So this kind of raises a question. Once we've finished that, I'll just flick through that a bit more, just have a look at a few more of the bits in it. So compared to the original file that it started off as, a lot better. So one of the questions that I ask myself is, how readable should a video be? Video, image, or sound piece? Well, from my point of view, unless you're going for complete abstraction, you need to have something left of the original video to give people something to hold on to. But I also don't think that people are going to watch a whole video. So one of my things, I certainly don't make them with linear viewing in mind. Given the way that we exist online, our viewing is by its nature free. We don't just watch a whole movie, we watch a clip of it on YouTube, or a meme made from it, or even a still. I don't make videos intending them to be seen as a complete thing. They are part of the ocean of information we float in. So it's just a text file. So with this command line script, we're treating the video as a text file. So this does work, but you don't have any great control or subtlety with it. As a video file is much more than just a text file, we need to change the script. Now to do that, we use something called hex editing. And hex editing reflects and works with the way in which a file is actually structured. It's less a metaphor than the same way that a desktop is a metaphor, and it's more as a computer sees something. So it allows us to avoid changing headers and footers, which will leave the file readable. Now, if you know anything about file structure, most files are structured so at the top they'll have what's known as a header, which tells you the basic information about the file, what format it's in, various other bits and pieces of information. At the bottom you have kind of like the opposite that. So as I say, hex editing is one of the key methods that I use in my work. I'm just going to pause there because I can see that Veteran is asking me a question. Do I target WebM specifically or just mind the header and hope for the best? It's more a function of experience of knowing which targets to choose, basically, if that's a quick one. Yeah, if you use very low values, I've gone through practically a whole set of values, say starting from 0, 0 all the way up to FF, and just to explain to people a bit more, when you're hex editing a file, you're actually working with a format called hexadecimal, which doesn't just have 0 up to 9 in it. It also has letters as well, which are A, B, C, D, E, F. I think there's no G. No, it's no G. So yeah, if you use small values like 0, 0, say to 0, 1, you're going to mess the file up. That's just experience because you know that they're more likely to be in the header. If you go ahead and use something, say, like 3 numbers long, like, say, one of my favorites at the moment is 888, then move across, change 888 to 881, there's little or no chance it's going to hit the header or the footer, if that explains that. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at what a hex editor for a GUI looks like. So this is a hex editor that I do use. It's called Bless. Now, it's a good idea before you start doing any hex editing of any kind, just to actually have a look at a video file in a hex editor, and then you can look around it, see kind of where the headers are, what numbers are composed of it, so that, and letters. That kind of goes back to what you were asking me, Veteran. So if you look through the file, you'll notice there's certain things, and you go, okay, so I won't touch the first 8 or 9 lines, that kind of thing, those beginning numbers. And if you look at the footer, again, the same. So you could do it through using a GUI like Bless, but I prefer obviously to use the command line. Now on the command line, I use an editor called XXD. And it's fast, and because in the bash terminal, the terminal is where I do all my work, I can actually recall the command. So in a bash terminal on Linux or Macs as well, I believe, and probably the newer Windows subsystem for Linux terminal system, your bash history means anything you type into the command line can actually be recalled either through using your up and down keys, or you can actually write that history into a text file and look back at what you've written. But if you're doing it on the fly, as I generally do, just flick up the up and down arrows and it'll repeat or show you what you just typed in, and you can just re-enter that and it will do the same thing over again. So having that capability to replay a command means that I can change values very quickly on the fly. So I'm just going to show you a slide of what XXD actually looks like. So this is the previous command modified to use XXD. So just to break that down a bit, XXD basically calls the file there called addbreak.webm and turns it into a hexadecimal stream. Now the little kind of upright figure there, I hope you're seeing that, just before said, is a pipe. So the output of XXD, it's streaming the file as hexadecimal into the command sed, which is then looking through the stream as it's appearing, looking for 0AD, and every time it sees that, it replaces it with 0AB. Now, after it's done that, it pipes that back out through the next pipe symbol, which is the upright slash. And then XXD turns that back into a standard stream, then outputs that into a new file called addbreakhex.webm. Now, as I say, never copy a file on. If I just kept it as the original file name, you'd end up with a blank file. Now I actually have an example of what this looks like in action. So I'll just find that. Okay, yeah, there it is. Let's see. Okay. So this should be, this is work on the command line with XXD on the file that we're just still working on here. So this is me typing it out as a command. And that's actually what the file would look like if you just piped the output like that. That's what a video file would look like. Now, if we go back, and I'm just going to find the other video after that. So this is actually what that video would look like if we turned it back into video rather than just allowing XXD to spew it out all over my command line. I think the actual command line kind of, yeah. So this is just basically hex editing on the fly. So we'll take the original file that we have there, again, addbreak.webm. Zoom in the terminal there a bit. So you can see I'm just recalling the command from where my command output. If we can actually find it there. Ah, there we go. And we found it. But I just have to change what the file actually is. As you can see, quite a lot, so it's just there. It's the value of the file I'm trying to hit. Right, so you can see there I'm changing 48 to 8808. That's all I'm doing. So that's it run on that file. That's how quick it is. And we'll play back that file. That's different. If you run this command, the VLC on in the background, we can actually tune that. We can change them as the video is playing and just replay the video or allow us to see what it's actually done. To the beginning of the file. So now it's almost shortening the values that we're using. Doing it once more. Yeah. So if we go even shorter now, that's probably partially what Vedran was saying. So I've gone down to 8081 and the file has basically disappeared. It won't play. I've gone too far. I've made the values too short. So we'll go back. I think we're going to go back and change the values once more. Yeah, so we're going to change it to these values now. So FACE to CAD, which is hexadecimal. It looks like it's not, but it is. Shush, Marley, shush. It's being noisy now. I know. And this is the file playing back again with those values. Now, there's not as much kind of damage to the file this time. Just change them once more just to, yeah, so we'll just shorten those values a bit. Yeah. And there, oh, that's nice. I like that. Yeah, we'll keep that, I think. Yeah. So I'm making decisions as this is happening as to what I actually like and what I don't like. So there's kind of I'm making aesthetic judgments based on what I'm seeing as it's going along. I know, Paul, I know. We're talking about aesthetics already. So we're going to do that once more. Yes, we are. So now, so we have a file that I think I like. So yeah, my slides have got messed around. So we can actually bake that on the command line, but it won't work. But we'll try anyway, and we'll see what happens. So this is using FFmpeg to take the broken file. So FFmpeg -i abrake hex.webm. We're going to leave out the sound, obviously, because of what I talked about the other day. We're just going to copy the codec. That's what the copy part there means. And we're going to give it a new name, abrake hexfix.webm. Now I'm just going to fire that up. So sometimes FFmpeg will actually work, other times it won't. I've just had a few bad experiences of it not being actually able to fix a file. So this is it baking that particular file we just made. If I have everything in the right order. Marley. Okay, so this is trying to bake that file we just hex edited on the command line with FFmpeg. So just type the command in there. I think I'm just typing this off the top of my head there. I remember. These commands are so long and so torturous. It's, yeah, but they're basically ones I use a lot. So, and come in, type fast. I should actually say that command line is very sensitive to case and to spelling. If you spell something wrong on the command line, it just won't see it. Oh, wow, it did actually do it. Oh, cool. So there it is. It's fixed it. Now let's play that file after it's been baked. And there it is. And that's the exact file we've just baked. So, I won't play it all the way through. Oh yeah, so I'm just skipping through now looking for things I might like. So it's perfectly playable. Sometimes when you hex edit a file and you try and flick through it with VLC, VLC will not play it, it will just stutter and stop. But this file now is fixed where I want it to be. There's a few nice bits and pieces in there I might use another day. Okay, so, oh, that's kind of nice as well. Ooh, oh, pretty. I like the circle there, 4 times more, excellent. So we'll stop sharing that. So that's baking that file. Now, I'm going to break that command down now because it's quite complicated. So, it looks complicated, but it's not. It's fairly simple. So, to start with, as I said before, xxd minus p tells xxd to read the file addbreak hex.webim into standard input output as a plain hex dump. The upright slash output of xxd into whatever command or script is after the pipe. Now, you don't just have to use sed there. You can actually use all sorts of other things in there, and I do that. This is just the example I'm using. So in this case, it's sed. So sed replaces the values we tell it to, and then the output of that is fed through another pipe back into xxd, which turns the file back into its original form. Then, obviously, the redirector symbol, the kind of sideways hat, outputs that into a new file we'll call addbreak hex. And it's very important, as I've already stated, when using this method, not to copy a file back onto itself, or you'll end up with a 0 bytes file, and you will lose that file unless you've made a copy elsewhere, which also brings us to an important point. Always make copies. So, what's the next slide? We'll go to this one. Yeah, so that's just reiterating what I just said. Always make copies and never output a file back onto itself. Because, no, that's my dog Marley, Paul. He's by my side. He's just having a moment. So, it's all very well hex editing files, but you need to know how each particular file will break when you hex edit it. Now, I've talked before about different textures and kind of motions in a file. Now, when you start looking at file formats, you kind of start playing with them and start noticing that they have different structures, obviously. They'll have different headers, footers, and they'll treat the actual images and colors and things like that in different ways. So I'm just going to run through. Where are we? Yeah. So computational cost. What is computation? Oh, I know what's happened. Oh, right. Okay, then. So know your file types. So there's also something else to know about files as well. There's a computational cost involved with each file type. Some codecs, this is kind of by way of a side note, but it also kind of has relevance to the kind of hardware that you're using, being a laptop, a desktop, whatever. Some files take a lot longer to encode, and longer files can take hours, literally, depending on the age and speed of your computer. Now, for instance, MS Video 1, which is from the dawn of time, will take a hell of a lot longer to encode than libxvid. libxvid is actually one of the easiest and quickest to encode. So a lot of the time making glitch art is more about waiting around for the computer to finish an encoding run. So match the codecs you want to use to the computer that you have. For instance, it's no good trying to run an encoder for H.265 on a dual core kind of Pentium D from 2005, because you're just going to be there for probably about a day and you're going to overheat your computer. It would be a great game, Paul. Yes, know your codecs. So there's also, as I say, match the codecs you use to the computer you have. There's also size to take into account. How much hard drive space do you have? Raw video will obviously take a lot of space. We're talking gigabytes for like even a couple of, about 30 minutes is a in raw video. But then so does OGV, which is actually compressed, and even WebM, especially if you're playing with high bit rates and quality. So there's something else that I've also found with different codecs. I'm going to go through like kind of what each codec looks like in a second. But a couple of the codecs are very interesting in that you can actually add or subtract information into the file. What do I mean by that? So the command that I usually use, as I've shown you, the xxd thing, if on a file you type in Z part 4 numbers hexadecimal and replace them with 3 numbers hexadecimal, 9 times out of 10 it'll break the file. But if you use it on libxvid, you've got something very close to data moshing, and I'll actually show you an example of that in a minute. So I'm going to just run through how different codecs look when they're hex edited with this method that I've been using now. So I just have to call up each file in turn. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you is Schrödinger. Now, I went through a big phase of using this because it is a beautiful codec, the way that it actually looks. And obviously, you want to match the codec that you're using to the material you're using as well. The codec's actually called Schrödinger in earlier versions of it. So you can see these beautiful kind of pipes and then strange circles. I'm going to pull that point. So just if I can just whiz through that a bit. There. Yeah, so you get these kind of parallel triangular and these odd kind of balls of black and white here and there. The beauties of this format, that it is, countering the way that you'd think it would break. Kind of the breaking doesn't really reference the material it's breaking from. It's unusual. Marley, you're talking too much. You're being far too talkative. So, okay, now I'll just find the next one. H.265. So the next format we're going to look at actually is H.261. H.261 is a format which is basically, again, from the dawn of time. It's a very, very early kind of. So we'll just stop sharing that. And I'm just going to show you H.261. Marley, you're being very talkative. I know. So this is H.261. Now you can see this is all over the shop. This just judders everywhere. Stop now, stop. And sometimes with H.261, when you hex edit it, it's just unplayable. VLC won't even see it. I've had experience of hex editing H.261, and the actual VLC window will keep opening and closing and jumping across the desktop in kind of hilarious fashions. But there's nice kind of jittery motion in there, which I kind of like. I should actually say to people as well, there's something we have in GAC where we warn people if they have photosensitive epilepsy. So if there is anybody, just say, yeah, I'll answer that later. That's kind of a good one. I'm just going to take a quick break because the dog's actually by my side is being very disturbing and I can't actually hear myself. I'll be back in a second. Marley, you're being very naughty. I know. No, you're being naughty. Now stop. Come on, come on. It is, yes, but he sits right by my side. He doesn't. He loves just being by me, and to get my attention, he just does that constantly. And I find after a while I can't concentrate, so I've just moved him into another room. So now, after having seen HT61 and had Marley talking about things, you know, he wants us to know his opinion on stuff. He has a lot of them. I'm going to show you H265, which is one of the newer codecs that's last few years, well, last 10, I suspect. So this is H265. So this is again. This is completely different kind of blockiness to before. How do I describe it? It's using the command for all of the videos, so I should run this as well. So different artifacts. They're similar to WebM, but you get areas which are more in block. Like this bit here, you get parallel line, odd, strange little things going on. Like that. Those artifacts there. No, this is actually, I'll show you next. Yeah, lots of the sources remain. Yeah, well, it depends on how much you hex edit it. If you go really far into it, then you can destroy everything that's there. But again, that's what do you actually want from the video? Do you want it still to be readable, or do you want it to be completely abstract? I like some glitch videos or even images I've seen where you lose all identity with the original source. That's good because it becomes then about the artifacts. But I think if you're just concentrating on the artifacts and lose the source material, then you might lose the audience, or it just becomes, I don't know. Well, I mean, the artifacts are fine as well, but it's down to personal preference, I suspect. Right, so yeah, more motion dependent, yeah. Well, obviously they're, yeah. Now this next one, I'll just key that up. This next one is libxvid. Now, as I said before, I'll just load this in. So, yeah. So as I said, the next video I'm going to show you is libxvid hex edited. Now, this is the one where I subtracted from the file. And the appearance is, as I say, akin to data moshing. Now, a lot of what I do with this command is trying to find a sweet spot in the codec where I get the aesthetic that I'm looking for and the tearing, but it's still readable. And with this one, it was quite surprising that this happened. So I found this sweet spot for this file. It may not work on another file. That's, again, the frustrating thing. But, I mean, the whole point is to search. So I'll just play this file and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so this is libx. Same video again. As you can see, because the extra value has been taken out, it's taking away some emotion of the keyframes, I presume. So then you're suddenly getting those moments you get with data moshing, but without data moshing, like there. So you're getting these strange kind of bleeding cuts across kind of shots, I suppose you call it. There. And that was surprising because it doesn't happen very often that I'll find something like that. And that's kind of, it's very pleasing when you do. And there, the man just walked out of his laptop. That was kind of funny. And the minions, hooray! Who doesn't like minions? So I'll probably try and use that command again on something bigger because I like what that did. Obviously, the way the codecs are structured, there are certain areas within the file and certain hex values which relate to motion, color, things like that. So I may have accidentally hit those. Now the next one, we have to include this one because, like Mali, it's very cute. MS Video 1, it's a dinosaur of a codec. It's Microsoft's original video format, and I love this one because it's quite cartoony, and you get kind of really beautiful echoes when you have motion, and it's got a strange pixelated early 90s feel going on. So I'll just find that. But there is one which is actually more lovely than this, but in some ways, because I'm a painter, or was a painter at heart, I suppose all creations going through there, and it's nicely coloured, and then strange kind of an echo every so often as it moves, and it'll take some colour value like that, colour values with it or there, and it's quite a nice resilient file to work with as well. And actually, some of the artifacts you get here, there's a newer codec called HAP, where you get similar kind of artifacts, but you don't get the traveling following you get with this. Thank you. Yes, I do like it. There's this whole thing of trying to find different codecs to work with, not repeating the same things that other people are doing. Now this one, this has actually been used a lot. This is called Snow, and it's actually a DIY codec. I mean, that's another thing that people don't talk enough about, I think, with open source software and things like that. A lot of the codecs that we use are actually, so Snow was started by some guy in his bedroom probably, but things like OGV that I use a lot, WebM, they're all open source. OGV actually comes from a previous codec called, by a company called, I think it was On Video, called VP2 and VP3. So they're actually based on those. The company went bust, they open sourced the actual codec, and then it got taken up by the open source community and Google as well. So, but this is Snow, and I absolutely adore this codec. I mean, it's like nothing else I've ever seen, and it's so hard to work with though, unfortunately. 30 yards, yes. Let's just look at some Snow, veteran. This is Snow. Oh yes, you're saying. Sorry, I missed that bit. And this, to my mind, is the most gorgeous code that there is. I mean, it does strange. Almost no relationship to the video that's underneath it. But then you get these strange moments where through or through, I don't know. And the color, where the color just turns it into these weird black and white kind of pause and want to find a moment in it if we can. Yeah, there. This is absolutely beautiful. Just this, it's like nothing else I've seen in a codec. But again, it's very hard to work with and generate something which doesn't look like something that somebody else has made because it's so common. So after that, so let's take a look at my workflow. Let's really push a file to its ends. Let's use one of the files I've downloaded the other day and transcode it. I'm going to just go through what I'm going to do to this file. I'm going to transcode it from H.264, which is what it came in, to H.261 using FFmpeg. Now, with H.261, you have to change the size, but I think the command will probably be in the... I can give that to other people later on. Anyway, so we're going to hex edit it using the examples I've given, then transcode it, bake it, then run it through Caspar Ravel's tomato script that I talked about yesterday. I'm going to show the real-time video of the processes as they happen, and then some of the final results. And we're going to kind of watch this, but as I say, it's kind of an exercise in seeing how a workflow goes and how a lot of the time it's time. We're waiting for things to happen. So let's just find this video. So this is actually the whole process from beginning to end. If the video is there. So yay, real-time glitching. So this is 7 minutes, 29 seconds long, but this is actually, it's not compressed in time or anything. So what I'm doing first is we have the I Love Trouble MP4 there. Now, I have edited this actually. So I'm going to transcode it from H.264 into, as you can see, minus CV H.261. If I can get this any fast. Now, I've actually got to tell it to change the size of the video because H.261 will only take certain sizes. Now, the -S command just tells FFmpeg to change the size to what you specify afterwards. Now, it's going to run away there. This is FFmpeg actually converting in real time. That is a good question, Dina, but I'll answer that towards the end maybe, or yeah. That is actually a very good question. Now, as you can see, this is going to take a while. I might fast forward through this bit because nobody wants to see a file encoding, but then I'd be sat at my computer waiting for this file to encode, maybe doing a couple of other things as well, but, you know, keeping an eye on it. Okay. Yes, waiting is 99% of success. With this method, it is because it's not. This isn't even the slowest method that I use, which I'm covering tomorrow. Yes, yeah. Well, as I say, I wanted originally to do this whole thing in real time. This is about as close as I can to actually, yeah. And this is what I like about encoding with the command line is you don't actually see a GUI or anything like that, and it actually frees up a lot of the CPU cycle, so it's faster. Well, you wouldn't think that through looking at it, but so yeah. Mindful file encoding. Where are we at? So that's up to 40 minutes, yeah. Yes, possibly. I mean, if we could ASMR it as well, could maybe count down the number. Funny. Yes. Right. Oh no, we wouldn't be talking about that. No. So I might just. Oh no, we're nearly at the end now. 51. It's only about an hour long. So the number of views it's coming up on the. Just to explain what it's doing. On the left-hand side, you see where it says frame. It's just telling you which frame it's working at. After that, it says frames per second, how many frames it's actually working per second. And the next one is the quality that it's actually encoding to. And I can't remember what the middle one is. And then we got the time indicator there, which just tells you where it is in the file time-wise. And then it's the bit rate. It's actually recording it to. So H.261 is very low bit rate, but I think it was originally designed for video conferencing. But yes, that would be a good glitch artist self-help book. Somebody should write that. So it's actually encoding it to 300 and is that 300? 332 kilobits per second, which is very slow. If you consider that, say, DVD PAL would be, what, 5 megabits per second. That's how the stream would work out. And we're nearly there, 121. Okay, so where are we now? 127. Oh, it's actually longer than I thought it was. Yes. Yeah, it's a good indicator of how, yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this isn't a very big file. It's only, no, you can, yeah, you can make MS Video take it. I've used 1270 by 720, yeah, on MS Video. Yeah, now, so this is the file after we've encoded it, just so you actually see. Is it? Yeah, so this is, yeah, this is the actual movie. This is before encoding, yeah. So, but if we play the file which made, instantly you can see it looks smaller in playback, and you can see it's a lot blockier than the video that just played. There's a lot of artifacts on it already. It must transfer from film. So now, what are we going to do now? We're going to hex edit it. Yes, let's hex edit it and see what happens. Okay. So this, using the same method I just talked about, I'm actually adding in an extra value into this as well. So that's actually glitching the file in real time. So it's running through all the values. Now, I should actually play that now. Yeah, is that finished? Yeah, no, it hasn't. It's just waiting to finish. When is a file finished encoding and when hasn't it? Yeah, so I'm just going to flick through a bit here. And we're still waiting. Right, so now we'll play that file. So this is playback in MPV. I wouldn't even bother to play it in VLC because it won't play in VLC. So you can actually see now, just with simple changing of values, the movie's just gone strange. And that's what I like. That's what I'm looking for. You can see there's artifacts already, what I call tearing, and you see where people are moving, you'll get kind of jumps, and then they'll disintegrate into blocks again. H.261 is very blocky, but the tears you get, like at this point here now, like trails of pixels. Very beautiful. Just fast forward through that. If I actually, yeah, so there again you can see where it's breaking. So again, I mean, once I've hex edited a file, I'll actually look through it, fast forward, and see whether I actually like it. If I don't, I'll just reprocess it again. So now stop sharing that. So where are we now? No, so once I've actually done that, I'm going to run that through Tomato, which we used the other day. Just fire that up now. Okay. So this is that video put through Tomato. Now to do that, I think we're going to transcode it to, yeah, we're going to transcode that first, are we? What are we doing here? Ah. Yeah, in the values on the command line. Yeah, we're just transcoding, I think, at this point. Yeah, so we're just transcoding that to libxvid now. So I've transcoded it already from H260 to 261. Now I want to work with Tomato. So what I have to do then is transcode it back to something like libxvid. Now, I know that Tomato will work with H261, believe it or not, but this time we're just going to play it safe and do it with libxvid. So that's transcoding again, but we'll fast forward through that. Now we're going to run that through Tomato. Does it really? Right, okay. Okay, yeah. I tend to stick with libxvid, to be honest. It's just simpler. So this is Tomato working. Yeah, ZMBV as well. I think I've used that. Yeah. I've never used SQV1. So now we're waiting for Tomato to do its stuff. And waiting. And waiting. Again, a lot of what we do is just waiting around for files to bake or to encode or to hex edit if they're bigger. And I think we'll just fast forward through that because it's getting later now. And we're still waiting at that point. You can see a couple of minutes later. And then a couple of minutes later, we're still waiting. Still waiting. It's actually still playing. And you can see it's still waiting. So that's after about 5 or 6 minutes because the file is so damn big. And we're still waiting there at 6 minutes and 12. It's 37. Now. 7:11, we're still waiting. Oh, no. Right. Yeah, we're just looking at what the processor's doing here. Sometimes when I'm actually encoding a file or doing anything art, I'll actually take a quick look at what's using to make sure it hasn't bound and frozen. I mean, a lot of the terminal, if it is macro, you need to find out what's going on. There's a command called top. Anyway, that's finished now. So let's play that and see what it looks like. So we'll play that with MPV player. And you get this really strange kind of, again, with Tomato, it's wonderful the way it just repeats frames. But with H.261, there's this wonderful kind of block movement that you get, which I don't think you get with any other codec. And it's just fabulous. It really is. And occasionally with H.261, even if you start with a black and white film, which is what this is, you'll actually get color in it as well. So the final film, yes. I'm going to just stop sharing that. So we won't do questions yet. I'm just going to show you the final film. Some of it anyway, because the actual film, this is a funny story. I actually put the whole film through Flowblade. Yeah, so we'll just look at that in Flowblade. So Flowblade is an editor in Linux that I use quite a lot because it's simple and it works really well. So we'll just see that in action. So once I've got that file, it's still in Tomato. It's been mushed within a degree. It's like I want to fix it. I want to back it up that with Flowblade as well because I want to edit some bits of it as well. Like sometimes with something where you've done something to a file so drastic, the end of the file, even though it's playable, will actually be blank. And especially with Tomato, it'll just stretch things to such a degree. So this is Flowblade. This is the editor that I'd use. So we're just looking at it, and we're going to flick through it with Flowblade and just find a point where I want to cut it. Yeah, so... Or you'll get, say, at the end of a file, you'll get one frame which is repeated all the way to the end of the file, and that could go on for about 30 minutes of one frame. So I just check that that hasn't happened and just delete that bit. So this is just Flowblade rendering the file. Obviously, this is speeded up because it can take. I think this one took about. What does it say? Yeah, in the end, that one took about half an hour or so, something like that. Now, I'm just going to show you the end result with the sound on as well, but there's nothing that's copyrighted, so we should be okay for that, if that's all right. I'll try and turn the volume down as well. Okay, so this is actually how the file ended up. Now, if you look during the playback at the length of it, you can see it's 4 hours and 30 minutes long, which is hilarious. because when I uploaded this file, I had a few problems with it, and I kind of used a command line approach, which basically, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so if you want to turn the sound up, do that. That's fine. Yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yes, I had a problem with the file, and I basically took the file after it had been put through Tomato and chopped the end of it off because I found out where the blank and the repeated area was, which was kind of around 50 minutes in. So I lost maybe 30 minutes at the end of the film. I chopped that off, and in Flowblade, that's fine. It looked as if it was 51 minutes long, but I wanted to use the file as it was, so I uploaded that. I was having problems because the file that Flowblade made was too big to upload on my broadband connection. So then I looked at the original file Tomato had developed and saw it was way smaller, chopped the end off where it was just stuck, and then I uploaded that. Now, for some reason, when it uploaded, YouTube reckons it's about 4 hours and 13 minutes long, but it's not. It's only about 50 minutes. So that's just one of those things, an unexplained moment. So whenever I'd done hex editing, it's obviously, and Tomato, it obviously changed the length of it. But it was strange. So just yeah. So if you can hear the sound of that, it is. I mean, the sound itself is quite nice. It's like elongated voices, and we'll talk about that another day. I love what it does to faces. It's almost like it turns the faces into Rubik's cubes and turns sides and then moves them down and around, and you can see the odd color picking up through there. So I won't play this all because it's about 4 hours long, and I don't think we've got patience to see for that long. You can look at it yourself later on YouTube. It is. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, the disk space. Oh, the disk space. Especially on a small 128 gigabyte SSD. Now, I'll stop sharing that, and I suppose we'll get to the questions part, because that's basically it for the presentation. So if anybody has any questions, I think the other day Dina was moderating, and yeah, so anybody has questions, I'm here to answer them. Questions? Have I been cut off from cyberspace? Oh, no, I haven't. There you are, Dina.
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
So yeah, as Ian said, please, if anybody has any questions or want to contribute in audio, just feel free to turn on your mics. Otherwise, you can paste your questions into the public chat feed, and I'll just read them.
Yeah.
And before somebody types a new question, we have a few from earlier.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think we answered Vedran's question. You answered about the web app. Do you target it specifically, or just mind the header and hope for the best?
Yeah.
Oh, and then there was a question about can you output frames from broken video files? Can you conserve them as images and then reassemble them? Like, is there also a lot
there
of
is a way of doing it? Yeah. I'm actually going to be dealing with that tomorrow, but there is actually a specific command for doing that with FFmpeg. You can take, just to explain it quickly, there's an FFmpeg command which will take any video and turn it into stills. So even if the file is broken, you should be able to take the stills out of it. Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah.
Great. And do you have an idea? This is like my personal, I don't understand it. Like, how does the color happen in the black and white videos? Okay, I understand, like, we have data and like the data gets misaligned in the file itself, but isn't the color space changes, or do you have like an idea on a direction for an experiment?
I don't have an idea. No, I just love it. I just love it when it happens. It's kind of this. The main thing that happens with H.261 is if you really push it, it produces a lot of green.
Yeah.
You get occasional yellows, but generally it's green and a couple of other, but mainly green. I think that may be just the video player going, oh, I can't read that, here's some green.
Yeah, I think Ramiro Pola at one point when he was presenting the FF glitch, he said that the green, I mean, this is my really layman reinterpretation of what he said, but I think he said in video language, like green is nothing, like green is like the lack of the capability of a codec to interpret some information. So it's really curious that in some techniques it's more green, and somewhere in like data moshing it tends to be pink a lot. Also, I think that's really nice.
I think you may have answered the question. That's probably as good an explanation as I can think of. That seems to fit. Yeah.
We can do some tests and publish them if we figure them out.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Oh, and that would take me to a question that I had, and this is something I'm thinking about a lot, but didn't kind of structure these thoughts already. And that's like, maybe I would formulate it like, do you think like maybe abstract art was in a way waiting for computer art to happen, because like the abstraction of the way you can work, of the methods you can use to work with files definitely aligns with somehow with the abstraction, the content itself. I feel it's really logical, so I feel like maybe the abstract painters were kind of going to this type of aesthetic and technique.
I wouldn't say they were going for it. I don't think you can make an equivalent. I see equivalences with the aesthetic, definitely, but as my understanding of it is through reading art history, what abstraction really represented it was the total kind of shock that technology gave to art in general when it invented photography. So the biggest effect on painting and moving towards abstraction was in fact photography. So it was a technological shock which created that kind of that movement, because if you have somebody who can just take a photograph of something, an absolute real, well, seemingly visually real photograph, why do you need a portrait painter or a landscape painter or any kind of realistic painter? Because you can just go down, these days you can just do it with a digital camera, but eventually Kodak came out with their little brownie and anybody could be, you know, taking photographs then. And I think that's more the reason why painting tends towards abstract as well. And then you get into the arguments of kind of late 20th century abstraction in the 50s, people like Jackson Pollock and, you know, some of the people in the late 40s who are more, I suppose you could frame them in the context of the political struggle between communism and capitalism, because abstraction then was actually pushed by capitalism as being, you know, better in some way, whereas the Soviet bloc, if you want to call it that, was still using the style of social realism, which I actually quite like social realism as a painting form. So it was a battle between those two things. I'd have to think that out more, though. I think that's not a complete answer, I know, but I don't. I think an abstract painter could probably find quite a lot freeing in using kind of glitch techniques, but that kind of denies then the joy of paint itself, and a lot of abstraction is purely the joy of paint and gestural moments that you can make with your body and your hands, if that explains something.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, of course, like this discussion could like just go on and there's no like straight blunt answers. It's just curious that I feel like computer arts like is in a kind of feedback loop somehow
Yeah,
towards like
yeah.
aesthetically it's like referring to a past period
Oh,
and some
no, I don't think it does though. I
oh,
think at its pure, I think at its purest, as it is net art, if we want to call it that, where we really all start from. I think it's a complete break with that kind of aesthetic, because there's a whole structure that goes with the painting world or the traditional art world, the whole mindset, which, although it can include elements of what we do, it isn't of us, if you see what I mean. It's not an us against them kind of situation. But I struggle constantly trying to find a connection between the old world that I used to exist within and the values that I had then and the values that I have now. And I still, after 7 or 8 years, I still haven't found any firm conclusion about, I don't even know whether there's any need for criticality in glitch art, whereas in a lot of traditional art, the criticality is there and it's built up as this whole structure which allows you to examine what painted or made within this mindset or a certain level of philosophy, but glitch art, I think, and net art in general, it's more the values that we collectively have created, and in some ways it's more unique than any art movement before, like modernism, postmodernism, any of those. And as I say, I haven't actually myself found any way to reconcile the two worlds yet. I'd like to, but I don't think I can. So I mean, when you ask a question about abstract art in relation to the most abstract of glitch art, I don't think they may look similar, but they come from totally different mindsets is probably my answer. That's it, yes.
great, thank you. I think we had a comment also, like maybe an anti-glitch thesis is that it seems we must rely on the random and incidental. Controlling the parameters is something that the author of the question often wants, and the redo function. But this isn't really glitch. Sometimes the art is in the coding.
Are we really going to go there? It's just as a by kind of comment, because that's kind of me going like that, is on the big collective that there is no glitch, exactly, there isn't. On the big collective that I'm part of, there's constantly kind of arguments about what glitch art actually is. I mean, if you just have a naturally occurring fault in a visual system, then that is technically a natural glitch. Now, the stuff that we make, that I do, that I've just been showing you how I make it, is actually quite controlled, in that I've experimented with values, and I know to a great degree when I hit certain targets with that very simple command what is going to happen with the file. So I can match file format to technique and values that I want to change, but that's through experimentation, and it's very controlled. Now, is that glitch art or is it glitch aesthetic? If I actually physically manipulate a file, does it cease to be a naturally occurring glitch? But then you have to ask the question after that is, what am I actually doing? And basically, to my own mind, I'm examining kind of the imperfections of the codecs that I'm using and the machinery that I'm using as well, trying to force them into a state of error. Now, that's not by chance. I'm not just observing, I'm actively participating in overloading systems to the degree that they break down in the way that I want them. And there is a great degree of control in that. But yeah, that's an ooh. If that explains kind of my thoughts on that.
Great, thanks for the comment. That's also like a huge question, and there's
Yeah,
a lot of possible answers to this
yeah,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, are there any other comments, questions? Uh, Ian, do you have a question for us?
Do I have a question?
Yeah.
Is this all really a simulation?
Uh, I'm not sure if we would know if we would be in one. So
Well, it is a question which concerns me greatly. So, I mean,
if it
that's
is, it's a nice one. So
yeah, it is, yeah. I like this simulation. A lot
yeah.
of it anyway. What's the difference? I mean, that's yeah. What is the? Well, that's the question. Like, if a glitch occurs in the wild, it's a glitch, and we can name it as that. If it's forced, as we do, can we name it a glitch? And I'd say yes, we can. Would be my quick answer to that. It's just taming it in some way, I suppose, and presenting it. Yes, but no, I don't have any questions.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe we wrap it up now,
Yeah,
and we meet tomorrow at
yeah.
the same place, same time. And
Same back
thank you,
channel.
Ian, and thank you everybody for being here
Yes,
and
yeah. I just like
providing
to
great.
thank everybody. Yeah, definitely. I just like to thank everybody who turns up, and it's really, I really enjoy this, and thank you for all coming along. As I say, just as a brief aside as well, I am going to be putting all of this up as a couple of really big blog posts next week, so all the commands and everything will be there. Bye, everybody. Bye. So that's it then. Yeah, I'll just close the room. Bye, Vedran. Bye.